Good afternoon, everyone. Madam President speaking. Welcome back to another episode of our medical diplomacy experiment here of TAF International. Once again, I'm here with Mr. President. Good afternoon. How are you?
Good afternoon. I'm good, thank you.
Great. And Madam Speaker, good afternoon. How are you doing?
Good afternoon. Thank you. I'm doing great.
That's awesome. I'm so glad to hear that, guys.
Thanks.
So, as all you know, we kind of finished off the experiment last week. But then the founder came with this amazing idea of prolonging this experiment and trying to see how it connects with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals for the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. So, first, for those of you who don't really know what this is, the UN Sustainable Development Goals are 17 goals defined by them as I quote, as urgent calls of action by all countries, developed and developing, in a global partnership. They recognize that ending poverty and other deprivation must go hand in hand with strategies that improve health and education, reduce inequality, and spur economic growth, all while tackling climate change and working to preserve our oceans and forests. So, as I said, there are 17 of them. The first one being no poverty, which is the one that we'll be discussing today. So, guys, what do you think about this goal? What do you know about this goal? What do you know about the situation of poverty? How do you think this goal will really change the world right now as it is? What are your thoughts?
Um, for me, I think that poverty is a really bad thing because if someone is poor, they're gonna be having lots of problems, lots of issues because they can't afford one thing or the other. And in poverty is changing the world in a bad way because when you go out on the street, you see some people asking for money, which makes me feel bad because I'm like, if this person has a chance in life to do something good, he can actually succeed. But he's here asking for money, which is really, really sad. And poverty is a really big and really bad role in our earth right now because poor people don't they're not really looked up to. Like people don't really care too much about poor people because if you're rich, for example, that's where people want to be with. They want to be with the rich people. They want to be your friends. But for example, if you're poor, no one's gonna be with you. Everyone's just gonna ignore you, and that's how they're just gonna leave you, and there's not going to be any interaction, which is just going to break down.
Yeah, I loved how you also noticed and talked about the psychological effects and the social effects of being poor or being in a extreme economic situation, because it's not just not having money, it's not maybe not having a healthy social environment to connect with other people because of being poor. So it goes way beyond money. So I think that's what you said. What do you think, Madam Speaker?
Um, I think from what he said is I kind of agree with him. But yeah, being poor, poverty itself is not something we should look at with good eyes or something like that. Because being poor, like living in poverty, it won't like it will give somebody like mental issue because you can't afford to buy anything. You're sick, you can't go to the hospital, you can't afford to go to the hospital, you can't afford to be under a good roof, and it will affect you mentally and physically. So I don't think poverty, we should look at it with good eye, and we should try to like distance ourselves from poverty. And how can that like help in our country? For example, being like, okay, being poor isn't good, being too rich isn't good also. So they have different contexts.
Yeah, it's kind of difficult to find balance, let's
Mm-hmm.
say, about what's good. Also, the situation may be difficult, but we can all agree that if you're too rich, you can have something done about it. But if you're too poor, then it's kind of out of control for you and you need help. And sometimes it's difficult for you to get that help and maybe to ask for help. Because as you guys said, the environment, the social environment is also very difficult. Maybe you don't have much of a choice and you just gotta uh, go on the street and ask for money.
Yeah.
But people really pass you by and they don't really pay attention to you, and it's kind of awkward, it's kind of uncomfortable for them too, because they want to help but they don't know how. So it's kind of a situation that's kind of the elephant in the room. We all know that it's there, but we don't really do much about it in our daily lives. So it's kind of weird. So I want to read to you some facts that the UN posted on their website so we can talk about them.
Okay.
So, this goal aims to end poverty, right? In all its form, everywhere. So, these facts. The first one: before COVID-19, the world was off track to end poverty by 2030, and now, after COVID-19 implications, pandemic has caused the first increase in global poverty in decades, which is huge. So more than 71 billion people were pushed into extreme poverty this past year, just 2020. So we have a pandemic which is difficult for everyone, but now we have people that were in a really difficult situation and were pushed even further, and now they kind of have to be on their own because the world has to take care of a pandemic. And we have a medical crisis, so it's difficult for them to find help now. What do you guys think? What do you and it connects with our experiment. What do you guys think? COVID connects with poverty and connects with our experiment because that's what our experiment was about. This room with four people and in a COVID situation. What do you guys think?
I think that the COVID has like brought like so many bad things, like for example, poverty, as we're saying, which is not good because if there's someone that has COVID and they don't have the money to be treated or the money to take the vaccine, we don't know what could happen to them. And poverty is something that is one of the problems that people really wish they don't like have, because if you're poor, you can't get education, you can't get like medical assistance, you're just gonna have a mental breakdown because no one's trying to help you, no one's trying to listen to you, like you're just gonna be ignored by society, which is really really bad.
Yeah, and it's funny to me sometimes because I like when we live in a society when you have everything so close to you, like I just can go to the supermarket and buy food or buy a new phone if I have the money. Everything is so easy for me in this way. And but this comes with all of kind of anxiety and stress, and it has its downsides. But I hear people say like a lot of times that poor people don't really have to care about this because they have less, so they are more happy because they kind of live with what they have. And I get this optimistic point of view or of carpe diem, live in the moment and stuff, but I don't think people are really, as you said, really thinking about the implications of being poor. Because as you said, you won't have a proper education, you won't give a proper education to your children, you won't have food, you will have to fight every day to get food on your table. So I think it's funny in a way to me how people kind of just think about being poor as in the movies. There's this character that's poor, but they are pretty happy or they're joyful. They're funny or whatever, and they just go by their life. But real life isn't like the movies in this case. So it's something that I think we should really take into consideration and really fight for this goal. What do you think, Madam Speaker?
So, what he said and what you said. I agree. And secondly, the pandemic and people going from high to low. First, I noted some things down, which is family, realization, love, equal, drop of pride, and explore. How does that compare? When the pandemic came, everyone has to stay at home. They don't have to go to work. You can order things because there's no way. And so, firstly, if you weren't staying with your family before the pandemic, you're always busy going to work and that. Too busy. When the pandemic came, you came like let's say you had to stay at home and you had to stay with your family, get to like have family time and everything. Secondly is the realization when the pandemic came, secondly, you had to stay at home here. And second, you get to realize that this is what someone is going through. This is how, for example, the poor ones, like you have, when you're going to work or school, you just be passing and you be seeing them and you be like, oh, the poor people, you don't even care about it. But when the pandemic came, you didn't have to go to work. You get to realize how they feed themselves, how they get to live their lives and everything. You get to like be in their shoes, like this their situation, like this is how they live and everything. Secondly, third, the love part. Well, for example, um a child goes to school, the father and the mother goes to school, and like there's not love between it. You're too busy like doing that. You go to work in the morning, you come back in the night, you don't have time for your children, you don't have time for your mom or dad, your family. On the like the quarantine, you get to have love, like mingle among each other and everything. And being the equal one, you get to be equal with the ones that do not have anything. Like you get to feel it like, okay, this is how it is, okay, this is how they live. You get to be more equal with the poor and the rich mixing together. Like, okay, I'm staying at home, the poor ones are staying at home. Also, like, oh, so this is how it feels like to have nothing, because you can run out of food from the pandemic. Some people run out of food and there's no way to order. Even if you order, it takes hours. So at that particular moment, I'm sure some of the people stayed for like 30 minutes without food in their house and they get hungry, starving, and all of that. So in that 30 minutes, they get to experience how the poor people felt like when they didn't have anything. And, you know, drop of pride. Okay, you've got to drop your ego, your pride, and everything, and be like others. Not like I'm gonna wear suit today and go to work. Too busy being the boss and everything. Okay, for example, a boss of a company has to stay at home because of the pandemic. Obviously, she's not gonna act. He or she doesn't. Is not going to act like, okay, I'm still the boss, like because I go to work and everything. Because of the pandemic, you're going to be equal with the rest of the people, being normal. Well, the pandemic is and exploring things you have not done before because you're too busy going to school, doing that, going to work, going out in the morning, coming back in the night, leaving the house. When the pandemic came, I'm sure most of us did some exploration, like things we haven't done before. We did them, looking for things to do at home. I'm sure, like for example, you have something at home that you didn't know you had, but during that pandemic, I'm sure you later you're like, oh, I have this, I didn't know, and everything. So yeah, I
Yeah,
don't
there
know
are
if
many
you
things that we take into consideration
yeah.
and we don't really appreciate them. As you said, sometimes you go through situations and say, wow, so this is what X kind of people has to go through every day. And it's kind of tough. I remember I was shooting a short film some months ago, and we were shooting really early in the morning and in the rural area of here. So it was really cold, the coldest I've ever been in my life. And I was not prepared for that. And I remember feeling so, so, so cold. I thought I was gonna freeze to death there. And I was talking to a friend, and he said, wow, I just don't know how homeless people do this every single day because they don't have. I had this chance to go home. I went home afterwards and I took a shower and then I went to bed. But they can't do that.
Yeah.
That's their daily life. And they have to go through that every single day. And talking about COVID-19, we had to take some measures like wash our hands and wear masks and stuff. But how are they gonna do that with their house,
Yeah.
with no roof above their heads? So it's also bad for them, for their health, because okay, COVID, and they won't have the opportunity. Okay, they can, here in Spain they can go to an emergency room and be attended because it's free here. It's their right. But I don't know if in some countries they can even do that, because I think in, for example, the US, I'm not sure because Adrian isn't here to confirm, but you have to pay afterwards. So if they don't have money, how are they gonna go to the emergency room? Maybe they have COVID-19, but they can do nothing about it. And as Mr. President said, they don't have the money to get the vaccine or test or get tested. So the COVID really brought up really hard situation for them that now we are seeing with this pandemic. So I think that's a really powerful thing to take into consideration. So another fact is that young workers are twice as likely to be living in extreme poverty as adult workers. What do you guys think? Because sometimes we think of, for example, homeless people or really poor people as being really old, but now young people are suffering that too, even more. So what do you guys think?
I think that that could be like true in a kind of way because the older people, when they're working, they have like understanding because they've experienced it for like 5 years at least. But the younger people are coming into the work, so they're not gonna have too much experience, which could lead them to like panic and be like, "Oh, what do I have to do here? What do I do here?" And when they panic like that, they could have like mental health issues, which is like could make them poor somehow, because if you have a mental issue, you could be struggling on doing something, trying to look for something, trying to understand something with it, which is too much thing for your brain to handle. So like that, they could just be going super crazy, and then they could forget what's happening and become poor in a way, like not poor the begging poor, but like they could start losing people, start losing friends because their friends are not there to support. They could be probably alone because their family is like in another country. They could like that. From there they could start going down and down and down.
Yeah, it's really hard because, as you said, it takes a toll on someone, on anyone, to just be in that situation, because sometimes when you have a bad day, it's bad enough for you. Just imagine having a bad day for the rest of your life, like being in this really difficult situation and trying to find help, but you're kind of invisible to the system. You just don't exist to the system sometimes. So it's really difficult. What do you think, Madam Speaker?
I think what he said is good, and the young people suffering from this, apart from the old ones, yeah, the old ones do suffer from it, but the young ones, that's why the education is also important, and the education system of where children have to go to school from 6 to 18, it has to be compulsory. This bill comes in. Children from 6 to 18 go to school, it has to be compulsory because of this situation. Not from 6 to 16 years, but 6 to 18. So when it comes to this kind of situation, the teenagers will be able to find their way, like to maybe find jobs or know how to take care of themselves. Why? Because they went to school, they were being forced, or they were being, like, it's compulsory for them to go to school till the age of 18. And once you're 18, you already have enough knowledge to know what is right and wrong. So when they throw you somewhere else, you'll be able to survive on your own. So also applies that education from 6 to 18 should be compulsory for all youths.
Yeah, because sometimes when you are, I don't know, 13 or even 16, you
Mhm.
think you know everything. You think you're
No.
mature enough, but you are not. Believe me, you are not. Because when you get older, you're just think about yourself when you were 16, 14, 15, whatever, or even last year, and then you think, wow, no way, no way. There's no way that I would have handled any kind of difficult situation at that age
Yeah.
because your mind changes a lot in a year. And teenage years even so more because you get these hormonal changes. You kind of are trying to find yourself, to find your personality, to find your place in the world. It's your
Mhm.
time to experience life, to be
Yeah,
comfortable in life and to experience it and try to find out who you are, not drop out of school and then have to live on the streets and live to the day. So I completely agree with you. And sometimes uh, we think that education is kind of boring because we get education. We have because we are lucky enough and privileged enough to get education. And those
mm,
who aren't that lucky, they just dream about being educated and being in school.
yes,
So it's like when you have straight hair and you want wavy or I don't know, any kind of hair, whatever. You just kind of wish what you don't have, but you gotta appreciate what you do have and try and find a way to help people who want the same thing as you to have it.
just realization.
hmm I completely agree. So now the last fact that I'm gonna give you guys is that 4 billion people, 4 billion people didn't benefit from any form of social protection in 2016. 4 billion people.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah, and imagine that people that didn't get this help in 2016. What about them now with the pandemic? Do you guys think that they're getting social protection now? That's even more difficult because the whole world has to take care of a pandemic. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think it could be like in between. Some people could be getting more, some people could be getting less. Because in like 2016, there was like no pandemic, no COVID, nothing. But now people are more focused on staying safe and protected because of the pandemic. So I think most people could not be getting the protection, but I'll say more people could be getting the protection because of the pandemic, and they want more people to stay safe and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, Madam Speaker?
Well, right now, when you said 4 billion people, that's like half of the population of the world. And then, as you said, there wasn't any pandemic like this. I mean, there were some sicknesses and diseases, but not like this one. So, compared to that one and now, I think less, more people are not getting proper um security and everything, but less, let's say 80% or 70 aren't getting what they're supposed to get right now, like shelter or coverage, but 3 20 30% are getting. So like this year on now um is worse
Yeah,
compare, yeah, because right now there's pandemic and people are trying to like hide themselves, no physical communication and all of that. So this year's one I think is really down compared to 2016, of course, because there wasn't pandemic 2016.
yeah, and the pandemic is being difficult enough for all of
Yeah.
us. So now imagine someone that doesn't really have as many privileges as we do.
Yeah,
So it's even more difficult to take into account now with the COVID
exactly.
situation.
Mm-hmm.
So the UN has its own targets and methods, but we're not gonna get much into that because we did that last year on our podcast. So I wanted you guys to think about this goal and what we've just talked about and try to apply it to our experiment. We have four people in this room, two male, two females, and they all have different backgrounds. We came up with different characters for each of them. So now in this imaginary scenario, how do you think poverty can influence this experiment?
The way I see it is we have a guy already who has like is treated with the best vaccine, and he has like a good health, like his health is good. And the way I see poverty is like in this experiment is that it could be in so many ways. It could be if you're poor, the three other people don't want to talk to you, or if you're poor, you couldn't get the vaccine for the COVID, which you're gonna have it and no one's gonna stay close to you. Or if you're poor, it could really depend because someone's like one person in the room could come to you and like make you feel better and comfort you and like say, don't worry about what other people say, it's okay. So it really depends on the type of people we have in the room because we don't really know their personality. We don't know like where they're from, like their background and stuff like that. So the way poverty is kind of like 50-50.
What do you think, Madam Speaker?
He's quite right. I mean, he's right. Um, the way it is, like the four people in the room. Yes, as I said, their personality and being poor again on top, people can change. Like if you're poor, like for example, I'm your friend and all of that, the first person and the second person could be rich, the third and the fourth could be poor. And when pride takes over, they forget about the third and the fourth people and put them down because they're low classes, let's say they're poor, so they have no business to be with them. But if they were all rich, they're all going to mingle together. So if one person falls down, they're going to abandon the person. So as I said, we don't know their personality. And secondly, people do change because of that. Too much pride takes over. So yeah.
So we're talking about how the way the economic power of someone changes the way we treat them,
Mm,
and even more so now with COVID, because you are afraid to get COVID, but now if what if you're afraid to get COVID from a person that's poor? Now you get even more afraid, or you get more reluctant to talk to them, and not only because you're afraid to get the disease, but because you kind of, as you guys said, you have some pride, so you have some social status in your head that tells you that you're maybe better than them, or that you don't really just, or maybe you want to talk to them but you don't know how to talk to them. So I think what we are really talking about here is how being poor or being rich, as you guys said, because if you're rich you want to get along with the rich kids.
yeah.
So if someone's poor, we change the way we talk to them, we change the way we interact with them, we change the way we look at them, we change the way we are as a person. Because if you kind of change that kind of attitude about yourself, depending of the money someone has, then it says more about you than about them. So I think we really need to educate people and kind of, for example, get the some kind of habit to try and see poor people. They are not invisible. They exist. For example, you go on the street and there is, I don't know, a man asking for money, but we just don't see him. We just get into the supermarket and buy our stuff and then we leave. But we don't see them because it's kind of embarrassing for us because we have stuff and they don't, and you don't really know how to handle the situation. So it's kind of a weird stage of communication. So I think we really need to break that and as you guys said, just find that we are people and forget about our pride. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, that's really what you said is really good because as we're walking down the streets, we see poor people. Sometimes you think in your head that this guy really needs stuff, and then we just walk past, go into the market, buy whatever, and leave. And then you go home and you're like, I should have given that guy something. Poor people too are humans. We're all humans. We're not like different or anything, and they're not invincible, as you said. And we should always try to help them in any way. Anything you can do, you should always try. If you buy something, you get extra change, give it to them. Just we should do something in a way to help them.
What do you think, Madam
And
Speaker?
and the poor people, it wasn't their fault that they're poor. So as you said, whenever you're walking on the road, sometimes if I see them, like I'll be like, have they eaten? I will just be like, how do they sleep at night? Have they eaten? The clothes they're wearing, do they even have another one? Meanwhile, at home, I have a lot, and I've eaten a lot, and I have a lot of food in the house. But I'll be like, I don't know if these people have eaten. You just be feeling the guilt in yourself, and the worst part about it, when you imagine yourself in their shoes, to be so awful. So whenever we see them, like, yeah, some people can give, but there's when like in public you're trying to give them something, you feel embarrassed. So I think that's one of the things that makes people not to give poor people some things, because they're too embarrassed to see for people, like to see them with poor people helping them and everything. And secondly, not all people you give money. There are some that need clothes, there are some that need food, not only money, because some of the poor people, if you give them money, they don't know what to use the money for. They just need clothes, maybe food or anything. So the closest thing is that when you see a poor person, the first thing you need to do is food, because you don't know if they have eaten or anything. It's not like, even if they have the money, there are some shops that if they go to buy the food, they won't give it to them because they are poor. So the first thing you need to give them is clothing. Firstly, it's food, followed by clothing. Use the money you want to give them to buy food and clothes. That's it.
Yeah, I really liked that you opened that conversation up because I don't think between us we talked about how we feel when we see a homeless person.
Mm,
And sometimes you go with a friend and you pass by a homeless person and you just pretend that they are not there
yeah,
because you don't know, as you said, you don't know what to do. Do I give them something? What would the other person think of me? I'm kind of embarrassed, but you feel guilty. You don't really know what to do. So we really need to open that conversation up because I think deep down we all want to help them. We all want to give them money or clothes or whatever. I sometimes hear that some people say that they don't give homeless people money because they think they're gonna use them for to get drugs. Because if they're in that situation, it's because they use drugs and that made them poor and ask for money.
yeah,
But what if they are? You don't know that. So does that really mean that you're not gonna help anyone? Because I'm not really sure that 100% of them are gonna use them for drugs. I'm kind of
yeah,
sure of the opposite.
yeah. And
So
Yeah.
you can, I mean, you can't just judge them by because they want to use drugs or something. I mean, just use the money and buy them food and clothes, and later on you give them the money. Use it for later.
yeah, if you don't want to give them money, you just can give them food or whatever. And sometimes we tend to judge them, as you said, because they maybe let's say that they use drugs, but we some lots of people, acceptable people, use drugs every day. Like they smoke, they drink alcohol, sometimes they smoke marijuana or any other stuff because it's funny. It's if you do that, if you are privileged and you do that, then it's funny. But if
Yeah,
a homeless person does that, then what does that make them?
Yeah, people see them in like a bad way because
Hmm.
like they're smoking, but like if they see a normal person doing that, they just see it like as a, I don't know, normal thing.
Yeah, it's kind of a has this other side of the coin, and obviously drugs are awful. We kind of all agree on that. But I wanted to talk about that double standard for poor people because they have to be better. It's just, for example, a double standard for women. Like we have to try harder
Mm-hmm.
because we have to kind of prove something that it's just within us. We don't really have to prove anything, but we feel that we do because we get compared on a daily basis. Just they go through the same on a different level. So I think that double standard really hurts them and really hurt us as a community because that's what we are, a community of human beings.
Yes, and helping them and the poor people. First of all, I wanted to say something earlier. Like, there are so many ways we can help them, and I mean, if everyone in a country, I mean, 2, 3 countries, like you go, you see a poor person, and you later come to the conclusion that if you give them money, they're going to use it for drugs. I mean, those kind of people, if you know they're going to use that money for drugs, still give them the money, but before that, you need to encourage them. Like, okay, this is how you want your life to be. Some of them just need encouragement from someone else. They just need them to lift them up, like from doing. Some people just want someone to talk to them about it. That's all, and they just stop it. And as a community, as a country, when we see people like that, once you can help that person, maybe today, tomorrow, check up on the person. I mean, if we all do that to them, how many, for example, we have let's say 2 million in the country, like there are 2 million population in the country, and you get to see those 2 million people, 1.8 million are good, and half of it are poor, like beggars and everything. You get to talk to them tomorrow, you check up on them. If we all do that in the country to all the poor people, everything will be better.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what a
I,
war would that be?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I agree. Because it's really good to check up on the people. As she said, if like every single person, like half of the country, checks up on the homeless person, he's gonna feel happy. He's gonna feel like he's being loved. Because most homeless people feel like they're not being loved because everyone just ignores them. It looks like they're invincible. No one like really cares about them, which is really really sad.
It's true.
Yeah. So I think we just can finish this off on that quote because I really love what your insights, and we've talked about for over 47 minutes almost. So I think we're just gonna cut this off now. I really loved our today podcast or whatever this is.
Okay.
So thank you so much,
Sharing
guys, for
discussion.
joining us. Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's kind of weird. Thank you so
Yeah.
much, guys, for joining us another Saturday because it's Saturday today. And next week we'll see each other on another UN goal. And we'll talk next week. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Bye.